We're Hasani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Welcome everyone to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hasani. Hope you are all doing well on this fabulous morning. Thanks for tuning in. Wherever you may be from around the world, whether United States, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, Asia, wherever you may be, we're glad to have you. We're continuing a conversation that we've started on forgiveness, because that's what we're dealing with in our Moving Forward program. For all of those who are members, you have homework to do. We're talking about how to overcome and, release the obstacles that get in the way of your ability to forgive, because when you ultimately forgive, it transforms your life and your relationship, and that's what we're talking about today. But before we get started, September 9th through the 11th is what? It is the retreat. It's coming up. Listen, if you haven't registered, it's not too late. Get in while you still can. There's still room. So check this out. We'll be right back after this brief announcement. Hey guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy Show. We're talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness. Such an important thing to do. And oftentimes, if you're truly going to genuinely forgive someone, you have to know why. You have to understand the relational dynamics that you've come from. You also need to understand the journey that a person has taken in their life. A lot of times, the things that they do in the present moment is predicated upon things that they've experienced in their past. And so having an awareness of that is critically important. We were talking about some of the high-risk factors with Janelle Bradley a couple weeks ago that contribute to an affair. And a lot of times people's backgrounds, their upbringings, traumas that they've experienced in their life have shaped them in such a way that has caused them to do unhealthy things in their life. And as a result, it has a direct effect effect on you because it's compromised the relationship. And so in this forgiveness process, it's important to understand, number one, that everyone is doing the best they can from the current level of consciousness that they are operating on. Like it's interesting, you ask a person, how do you define love and what does love mean to you, right? It's going to mean something different to each person. And there's a lot of contributing factors as to why that is. Because if I grew up in a household and love was abusive, love was abandoning, love was constant hurt and releasing and letting it go. Like if that is what I've experienced, I equate love with that. So I'm operating from a certain level of consciousness based upon what I was exposed to. So I bring my trauma, I bring my drama, I bring my idiosyncrasies, inconsistencies, contradictions, faults and flaws and baggage and all of the stuff into a present relationship and play out in my adult relationship, possibly what I've observed from childhood, operating on the level of consciousness that I'm at. And so in my level of consciousness, my consciousness stream, what I saw was wife, mistress. That's what it was. That's where I'm operating from. And so whatever the deficit is or whatever the bad behavior may be, a lot of times people have been soaked and saturated in a way of being based upon what they've been exposed to. And so when you come into a higher level of knowledge, when you come into a knowingness, when you begin to understand the true dynamics of a successful relationship, what the laws of a healthy marriage look like, as you know better, you're required to then do better. Now, do inherently people believe that it's good to be unfaithful or to portray or do things that they know will hurt and harm? No. I don't think anybody just inherently believes that it's good. But there's a lot of stuff that people need to be released and delivered from. A lot of things that people need to become whole and complete in. And once they do experience an internal transformation within their life, it impacts the way that they show up in a tremendous way. And now we're able to see someone different, because they're thinking different, they're doing different, and it gives us the ability to be able to extend forgiveness to that person. So the key is you have to, if you really want to change and transform your life, you have to increase your teachability index, right? When you have a high willingness to learn, learning something new, learning something better, learning a different pathway, right? You're going to operate from a different level of consciousness. So there is hope for the one who has created a sense of hopelessness in your life. Hope that makes sense. Let's go to the next one. Here's the reality, is that people can change, right? So the first question is, what is your willingness to learn? Okay, I have a high willingness to learn. Okay, great. Well, if you do, as you learn something new, you do something new, which leads to the second question. What is your willingness to change? If you have a willingness to change, you don't have to hold on to the behaviors that you've operated in for the last 10, 15, 20 years. You don't have to hold on to the deeply embedded belief systems that have governed and directed your life. You don't have to do that. You can be altogether new and different. And so change is possible. So the whole notion of, once a cheater, always a cheater, and that's what you did, that's what you're going to always do, that is a fallacy, that is a lie, that is a trick of the enemy, that is not true. It doesn't have to be that way. Many people have disproven that idea. It's become an error, a misnomer. It's not a fact. The fact of the matter is change is inevitable. Now, either we're going to be subservient and a slave to change, because we will kick and scream and hem and haw, and change will take over, and now we just have to go along with it, or we're going to be intentional to be on the on the positive swing of change, because we can help make change happen in our lives. And when genuine change does take place, it is a legitimate reason to ultimately forgive. I hope this is making sense as we go through this, because we're talking about why people actually move forward with forgiveness. Maybe you're in a stuck place and you're trying to figure out, how do I do this? Well, we're giving you some of the reasons that others have given to experience change. The next one, people deserve a second chance. They really do. Imagine if you fell from grace and were not given a second chance. What if you were still imprisoned to your past? What if people still held you down to what you did at the beginning of your marriage or when you were a child? What about when you were in your 20s, when you were crazy and doing all types of things and people wouldn't let that go? People still saw you today, 20 years later, as the person you were when you were 20 years old. There's no room for change in the mind of the people who judge you. And so this is where this whole term of confirmation bias comes into play. We have a bias against someone, and we're looking for evidence to confirm the bias. So if you were living a wayward life 15 years ago and you're a different person, I still have one eye open and I'm still looking at you with the side eye, waiting for something to happen. I'm looking for something to confirm the bias that I have about you. And so your bias, right? Your bias is keeping you from being able to genuinely forgive because you haven't let go of the past. And these are the things that are necessary to really experience forgiveness. So forgiveness is not some isolated, independent decision that you make that is not somehow connected to a variety of different things. There's an incalculable number of things. And what one struggles with to forgive, somebody else may have a different struggle. So while you have a deeply embedded belief system with you, I just have the pressure of family who is trying to convince me not to do it. So it's different for me than it is for you. And really what you need to do is unpack what it is for each of you so that you know how to begin to remove these barriers, remove these anchors so that you can truly release that person from your clutch, right? And these are the steps that you need to take in order to forgive. So let's go to the next one. Here's the deal. The reason why you should forgive. You deserve to feel free. You're worth knowing what it's like to not have bitterness take up space in your mind, in your heart, and in your life. I'm going to tell you something. I remember my wife went away to visit family. And while she was visiting family, there was an old high school friend that she saw at the time. Now, listen, we've graduated from high school, 20, almost 30 years ago? Something like that was my math. No, 20-something years ago? Yeah, there it is. And so they're connecting and, hey, how you doing and what's going on? And then all of a sudden, how such and such? Have you spoken to such and such? And then when a person's name came up, immediately it was a trigger. And they went into a very dark place. And all of a sudden, they became very angry, right? Because they were holding on to things that were done when they were in high school. And the reality is, for 20 years, this person who has harmed or hurt or offended this person probably is living their life, enjoying life, raising kids, traveling, just enjoying what the world has to offer. But this other person who's still hell-bent over what happened to them when they were in high school, their life is on a very different track. Emotionally, they're not in a healthy place. They're very volatile. They take out on others what was done to them because they haven't released it and let it go, harboring a lot of bitterness and resentment and trust issues. And oftentimes, things that happen to us in our lives, if we don't properly deal with them, it impacts our relationship with other people. So now other people have to pay a debt that they were not responsible for. I heard a good friend of mine say a very powerful, gave it a very powerful analogy. Imagine you went into a restaurant, right, to sit down at a table and begin to order your meal. But before you can even order, you have to pay the bill left behind at the people who were at the table before you. And you're like, why am I paying their bill? I had nothing to do with that. I didn't eat what was on that plate. It didn't go down my stomach, but I'm responsible for their debt and I got to pay it before I enjoy my own. Well, likewise, it's the same way when we bring in past hurts, past pains, and all types of stuff from our past that we haven't healed from, or maybe the pain existed in the current relationship, but it was in the past. We're talking 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago, and we're still today, right? We're still today feeling the pain and the emotional trauma of something that we haven't truly released. So you deserve to be free. You deserve to be free. Many of us talk about this idea of freedom, like we want to be financially free, right? The idea of being financially free is amazing. No debt, I've got money, I can do what I want. And we get that concept. But when it comes to being emotionally free, that's a lot harder for us to grasp, because some of us have gone through therapy, some of us have sought out counsel, some of us have done nothing. But with help or without help, many of us haven't been willing to do the necessary work to release. And so we're not free. We're still bound. We're still trapped. We're still ensnared in pain. And what we do is we project on others what we're going through internally within ourselves. And that becomes the problem. And if you truly want to forgive, you have to unlock, right? You have to take that key and let that person out of the prison that you still have them trapped in and release them. Release the pain, release the negative thoughts, release the toxicity so that you can be free. You're freeing them, right? But you're also freeing yourself to experience life in a way that you haven't been able to experience life before. Because if you are holding on to all of this space in your heart, these negative feelings and emotions, then it's taking up space and there's no more room to receive all of the wonder, all of the beauty, all of the great things that life has to offer. So let me tell you, folks, you need to be free. And when you take the time to be free, it is a game changer. It will change the trajectory of your world. I hope this is helping. We're talking about the reasons now why people legitimately, genuinely forgive. Listen, we'll be right back right after this quick announcement. Stay tuned. Hey guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about forgiveness and the importance of being able to do so successfully so that you can have the best life that you could have. Gonzalez said something very powerful. He says, unforgiveness blocks your blessings. It clogs your potential for absolute freedom within. Man, you done said something there. Can I hashtag that? It does block your blessings. See, many of us want to be blessed, but we don't realize that we have to get into position. There is a posture in order to receive blessings. And like if you're holding on to something that's happened to you, how can you receive when your hands are in a clenched fist position? You have to open things up and release what's in your hand in order to receive what it is that God has for you or what others have for you. Because at the end of the day, you can't live on an island by yourself. It's not just God blessing you. God uses other people to bless you. God wants to use the person who has hurt you to help you. He wants to use the person who's betrayed you to bless you. And so you've got to be in a position to receive it. And when you do, I'm telling you, it makes a difference. Another comment says, love this, and you get to experience the new version of yourself and your partner. I love that, because a lot of times, as long as you're holding on to bitterness and resentment and unforgiveness, what it does is it begins to emotionally and spiritually deteriorate you. But when you release it and you let it go, there's a spiritual revival, an emotional healing that takes place in you. And what happens is when that internal change happens, you show up different. You become a different you, a better version of you. And that's what this is all about. This is why you have to daily renew your mind. Constantly renew your mind. A changed life is a result of a renewed mind, of the cleansing of a heart. And when you do that, it puts you in a better place. Gonzalez is on a roll. He says, when I finally forgave my biological father wholeheartedly, my entire life changed, especially within the areas of my life. We have a better relationship with laughter and tears of joy. Freedom is necessary for growth within. The key component is within you. Now, I like how he used the word wholeheartedly, because many of you are forgiving your spouse, and what I would call it is a cheap forgiveness, right? You're forgiven for whatever your personal or selfish reason is, or you're doing it for whatever your reason is, but it's not genuine, right? You're saying it, it's mouth talk, but there's no change in the heart. When you think about salvation, if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, so there's a mouth-heart connection that has to take place with anything and everything you do. So when it comes to forgiveness, it just can't be something you articulate that sounds good in the moment, but you're still harboring something in your heart. It is both. It is both. Kathy says, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Listen, isn't it time for you to celebrate you? Isn't it time to give yourself a gift? If you don't have to wait for your birthday, you don't have to wait for a holiday, you don't have to wait for Christmas, give yourself a gift today. Put a bow on it, right? And let that be the gift of forgiveness, because it will free you. I'm telling you. Let's go to the next point here. You don't need to wait for an I'm sorry to move forward with your life. It's your life. See, here's the reality. The truth is, me asking for forgiveness is not a prerequisite for you to forgive me. Now, in an ideal situation, yes. Who wouldn't want a genuine apology? Who wouldn't want an I'm sorry? Who wouldn't want I realize the error of my ways and how I've hurt you and how I've set you back, and I'm pleading and I'm begging and asking you to forgive me? Who would not want that? But truth be told, many of you have gotten that, and you still refuse to forgive. You're still holding on to things. You still won't let it go. You're still building up a case, right, as to why they don't deserve it. So if that's the case, then an apology does not ensure one's, not ability, because we all have the ability, one's decision to forgive. But there have been others who have not asked for forgiveness. They haven't apologized. They haven't admitted anything. They don't have a contrite heart. They're not showing up the right way. Yet and still, one continues to forgive them and to give them another chance, and to work on a path to make things right. And they're willing to release it and start from scratch. They're willing, but yet they're unrepentant. They won't change. And so in these situations, it's proof that an apology isn't necessary for a person to forgive. It would be great if they went together, but they don't always go together. What if someone's no longer in your life? Like, I know somebody who had an unfortunate accident and haven't seen that person since the accident, and they've struggled to forgive. May never have the opportunity to square it with this individual and to talk about what happened, but yet I'm still 20 years later, 15 years later, 10 years later, holding on. And it's had a tremendous impact in other areas of my life because I haven't released it. So I don't want you feeling like, well, once this happens, then you will. No. Because once again, and this is why you got to get it right, the forgiveness that you're giving another person has more to do with the impact it has on your life than theirs. So even if this may sound weird, even if you have to do it for selfish reasons, do it because it frees you. Is that making sense, guys? Let's go to another one. It says, forgiveness expands your sense of goodness, generosity, and compassion, making you a more passionate and present person in the world. It's true. See, when you get into the practice of releasing negative emotions and negative thoughts out of your mind, you make room for positive thoughts, positive emotions and reactions. Like that's what you're making room for, because you are a vessel, right? And whatever you deposit into this heart and into this mind produces a harvest. And so a lot of times, many of us are mean and surly and mad and bitter and don't trust because we've allowed the wrong things to be deposited into our hearts, into our minds, and it's germinated, right, and produce a harvest of just toxicity. But when you begin to release that and you are intentionally depositing positive seeds into your heart and mind, something happens beneath the surface. Think about it. The law of growth, when you plant seeds in the ground, you don't reap a harvest right away. Something's happening beneath the ground in the soil. You don't necessarily know what it is, but it's the law of germination. And oftentimes the things that, if we're not careful, the things that we allow into our eye gate, into our ear gate, right? They're planting seeds and they're germinating and growing. And then all of a sudden, you don't know why, but you just feel a certain type of way. And you just have this new perspective and you just have this new approach to life. And you just all of a sudden become this different person. You don't know where it happened, why it happened, when it happened, but it just happened. And this is just who I am. Well, if we begin to roll back the tape, we can begin seeing how we got to that place. So it is your responsibility to work on changing your heart and changing your mind so that you could put yourself in a position to forgive. Okay. Here's another one. This is a powerful one. You are a role model for everyone in your life. Let me tell you something. If you have children, they have a front row seat to your life. They are on, let me tell you something. You are on full display. And what you model, they will mirror. Facts. And so if they see mommy and daddy operating this way, okay, that's what's normal. So when I become an adult, I'm going to do what mommy and daddy does because they're my teachers, they're my leaders, they're my guide, they leave a legacy. So you have to understand, the stuff that you're struggling with is not only impacting you, it's impacting everyone around you, particularly the ones that you're trying to protect hurt and pain from, and you're giving them hurt and pain on a silver platter and don't even realize it. Guys, we're talking about forgiveness. I hope that this was a good conversation and gave you some insight into where blockages may be in your life, where you're struggling, and what you need to do to overcome particular issues so that you can truly, genuinely forgive. Listen, you're watching the Couples Academy show. Tomorrow is Friday, which means what? It's Ask the Experts. It's Q&A day. Looking forward to seeing you there. Love you guys. Take care.